So in this video, I'm talking about the fact that the general public really doesn't know the difference between a natural bodybuilder and a steroid-using bodybuilder. And while anyone with hardcore bodybuilding experience would know for a fact that comparing a natural bodybuilder to someone who uses steroids is kind of like comparing someone who rides a bicycle to someone who is riding a motorcycle. It's literally apples and watermelons, worlds and worlds away, which to those of us in the bodybuilding community sounds absolutely insane because for us, it's extremely obvious the difference between someone who's natural and someone who's not natural. And this video, I'm going to talk about the very interesting story about when Greene and I were both competing in the IFBB, WNBF natural bodybuilding organizations. And we both got a guest posing gig and ended up posing right alongside top IFBB pro at the time, Orville Burke, good friend of ours, who outweighed us by at least a good 50 pounds or so. And the audience really couldn't tell the difference. So let's roll the credits and talk a little more about this. So in this video, I'm talking about the fact that the general public does not know the difference between a natural bodybuilder and a bodybuilder who uses steroids. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to thank everyone for the tremendous support, especially those who say this should be a one-stop place for anyone interested in training naturally. Thanks so much for all the support, and do be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you're first in line to get new content as it comes out. So, as I said before, most of us in the bodybuilding community seem to think that it's very obvious the difference between someone who uses steroids and someone who doesn't use steroids. And it's this public inability to discern the difference between a natural bodybuilder and a drug-using bodybuilder that makes it such that actors can routinely go on television after obviously using steroids and say that the reason why they look the way they look and were able to put on 20 to 30 pounds of muscle in a 6-month period was by eating chicken breasts and working out every day. Now, if the general public had a background in natural bodybuilder, they'd probably be on the floor laughing, but that doesn't happen. And I realized very early on in my career as well that most people don't really see the difference between a high-level natural bodybuilder and someone using steroids. And the story I want to talk about it really highlights this, the time that Greene and I went to guest pose at a local high school. Now, let's set the stage. Back in the day, natural bodybuilding was a lot more popular than it is today. And there were also lots of small bodybuilding competitions. And in order to spice up the show, they would look for the best posers out there and get them to come guest pose at these contests. In fact, I had a wonderful career as a natural bodybuilder, not so much when I was competing, but because the fact that I was such a good poser, I routinely got asked, and sometimes we even got paid to guest pose at these small shows. Now, one of these shows was a high school that had a small bodybuilding competition for the students, and we would come first to judge the competition and then go on stage and give an example of what an experienced natural bodybuilder would look like. And in a way, it's a little bit too bad that there was not much in the way of camera footage for our competitions back in those days, because I'd love you guys to see some of the posing routines we were pulling up. And so we got there and we sat down at the judging table to judge the show, and our good friend from Fifth Avenue Gym, Orville Burke, walks up and sits down next to us. And we said, "Wow, Orville, it's so great to see you," because we hadn't seen him in quite a while. And he was 2 weeks out from the IFBB show, the Night of the Champions. And he was in phenomenal shape. And so Kai and I said, "So Orville, you're here to judge the show as well?" And he says, "Yes, I'm here to judge. And then afterwards, I'm going to guest pose." At which point in time, our hearts dropped. Kai and I looked at each other and we thought to ourselves, we need to get the hell out of Dodge, because how are we going to pose on stage after literally one of the top IFBB pros at the time? Because compared to Orville, we didn't look like bodybuilders. We looked more like basketball players. Kai, I have an idea. We go on stage first and we pose first, and then we're going to leave immediately after that. So we're not completely embarrassed after Orville goes up on stage and does his thing. And so we judge the show, and all the time our hearts are pounding in our chest because we know that we have to go up on stage right before this monster and the time for the guest posing. And so we both go backstage and start pumping up to get ready. And to be honest, Kai and I wouldn't pump up that much usually before a guest posing. But for this one, we went all out. We went on stage, we went all out as well, giving you us the best performance we could, because we knew for a fact when Orville came on stage after us, we would be eclipsed. And so when we finished our routines, we hurriedly put our clothes back on as Orville stepped on stage looking absolutely incredible. And we were about to leave the auditorium. Orville called out our names and we were literally frozen in place. And people started coming up to us and telling us how fantastic we were up on stage, which was a little bit strange. And then they kept on asking questions like, well, do you compete with Orville? And we both said, no, we don't compete with Orville. Orville at the time was in the IFBB and we were in INBF, WNBF, the natural organization. And not just the high school kids, but the teachers as well. Some of them who actually seemed to be a little bit into bodybuilding couldn't seem to discern the fact that we weren't the same league as Orville. And that really got me thinking that the general public really couldn't see the difference between us and literally one of the top professional bodybuilders of the time. And when I released my DVD in 2004, that was the first time I had people accusing me of using steroids, which at the time I thought was absolutely ludicrous. How could someone look at someone like me and think that I was using drugs? In fact, if I was using drugs and looking like that, I think I kind of want my money back. And as the years went by and social media became what it is today, every single top natural bodybuilder has to routinely deal with the accusation that they're using steroids. A lot of this falls into what's called the spotlight effect. And the spotlight effect is that we tend to think that the world around us judges us the way we judge ourselves, and that others are looking at us and judging us the same criteria that we judge ourselves and that we judge others. That's not always the case, because most people don't really care about the fact you have muscles. And if you have muscles, like, oh, he has muscles. Now, the degree of development and the definition and the symmetry, most people don't really care. We in the bodybuilding world, we care about it because we devote ourselves to try to be the best we can be. But for everybody else, someone with some abs, some pecs, and some biceps, as far as they're concerned, they're between the same box someone competing in Miss Olympia. And I think it's important, if you're someone out there who's considering using steroids to somehow enhance your social standing, you should realize if you put the work in and get to a high level of natural bodybuilder, no one's going to know the difference. And in fact, it shouldn't make a difference because you never use steroids, nor should you even embark on the idea of being a natural bodybuilder to impress anybody else, because you never have to impress anybody else. You're good enough as is. Natural bodybuilding is something that I do to realize a dream that I always wanted to realize. It wasn't that there was something wrong with me and I had to fix it. And there's nothing wrong with you either. And in a way, isn't it great that you could train 100% naturally, have none of the side effects, none of the hassles, none of the problems that all people who use drugs have to deal with on a regular basis? It's quite a lot. So consider a naturopath. And if you are a naturopath, you probably already had some stories just like the ones that I've had being compared to somebody who actually is on drugs. But stay natural. Thanks so much for tuning in. Know I believe in you. And as always, Excelsior.